Hey everyone, Amos Bilo here, and I'm here with Tom, who is a participant and a member of the Anchored Bootcamp that we're finishing out this week. And I wanted to get his opinion on what it was like, what he got from it, and then have him tell you. So, Tom, why don't you just tell us a little bit about your story and what you do?
Yeah, I'm 25. I'm in my last year at Wisconsin Lutheran Seminary. It's the last year of grad school. A lot of stress and everything coming from that. And Lord willing, in May of 2020 here, I'm going to graduate and become a pastor somewhere and serve the church.
Awesome. What a noble and wonderful profession. Okay, so what made you decide to do the boot camp at this time?
Um, I had been like wanting to make changes in life, and had been doing a lot of like reading, but every time I tried to like make a change, I hadn't followed through on it. And I'm like, I need some type of like support system in place, and the boot camp was kind of the a way that it was kind of like pre-structured that I could step into in a way.
Yeah, awesome. So, what were some of these changes that you were wanting to make happen then?
Um, Specifically, like sleep habits, eating habits. I wanted to lose weight. I wanted to actually like become mindful of how I'm using my time, because so often I feel like there are these things I want to do, and then I don't do the things I actually want. Like the things I intellectually want to do, I just fall into old habits. And that was one of the big changes, is to just like to be able to decide, no, I'm not going to watch Netflix today. I'm going to do some creative writing or something instead, to kind of like develop that mindfulness.
Okay, cool. So how long had it been like that where you wanted to make these changes but kept falling into the same patterns and not utilizing the time and energy?
Um, I mean, when I look back on it, I can, in different areas of my life, I can see it like, you know, since high school, even, of like having these things I wanted to do but not really seizing the opportunity to do them.
Hmm.
So it's like, in a way, it's a systemic problem in my life that I've been meaning to work through. I just kept trying to do the same thing, that is motivate myself and figure it out on my own.
Okay, sure. How had that been affecting you then since high school? Affecting you or the people around you or yeah, just your experience?
I think it was like my life has been full of wishes and wants and what ifs, um, without a lot of action to back up those desires. And that itself, it's always been frustrating, like to find myself at the point where like, man, I so want this, but I must not actually want it enough because I'm not actually doing anything towards it. Um, and that's not to say, I didn't do things, but I would start strong and I'd like change everything at once, and then it would all slowly or quickly come crashing down, and I'd be back into my old habits, old routines pretty quickly.
Sure. How does it feel looking back and seeing that there's a lot of these should haves or could haves or what ifs in
There's
your
a lot
life?
of regret, that comes with it. Um, and even now, like looking back on the last 6 weeks, it's like that mindset that's ingrained, that hasn't yet been pulled completely out, that of thinking like, oh, if I had done this or if I had done that, I could have had an even better 6 weeks at boot camp. And it's just like trying to change my neurological pathways that have like ingrained
Yeah.
themselves for the
Yeah.
last 8 years. And it's just like, oh my goodness, Tom, can you just stop and appreciate where you've come?
Yeah. That is difficult to do for a lot of people. I'm glad you're making that change. So you said that one of the biggest things that you tried that didn't necessarily work was getting motivated by yourself and trying to
Mhm.
make these changes by yourself. What kind of things were you trying to change and how were you trying to change it?
Well, I would, I try to eat better, to eat better, whatever that meant for me at the time.
Yeah.
Um, and, I had this vague idea that meant I should be eating more salad and not as much ice cream or cookies or whatever. And, or I might cut out soda for a little while and just drink milk or water, and then eventually, you know, stressed, so I need caffeine, and because I'm not a coffee drinker, I'd go to soda for caffeine, and then that just kind of like rolled backwards everything I had changed. Or I'd go, I'm like, okay, I do a bunch of reading and I do a bunch of research and I like come up with like a workout outline and I do it like for like a week or two, might do it here and there, and then it gets less and less periodical, and then all of a sudden I haven't worked out for like a month because even though I have this great plan, I just
Yeah.
I never followed through on it.
Okay. Why do you think that is? What do you think the main reason is that these things didn't work?
That's a difficult question, because I don't think there's any one particular thing that like I can point to and say, oh yes, this one thing has been holding me back all this time. Um, but I think one of the biggest impacts was like a lack of external accountability for myself. Because like some people, they decide they're going to do it and they can hold themselves to it, no problem. Um, that's just not quite how my brain works, and I've come to recognize that through various reading and the like. That I thrive when there's some system of external accountability.
Sure. Okay. External accountability, not
Mhm.
just trying to motivate yourself.
Right, and whether that's like the anchored boot camp, or if it's just a group of friends who are like, hey, we're gonna go lift in the gym, you have to be there, and then I'm like, well, I can't let down my friends because they're expecting me to be there, and like that kind of just that external thing that's there that my brain is like, oh, we need to meet that expectation.
Now, having gone through it and going through
Mhm.
the boot camp and the group calls and everything, how would you describe the entire experience then for you in detail?
The entire experience. It is it is an experience that has challenged me because it has required me to live the examined life. When Socrates talks about the unexamined life is not worth living, like this
Hmm.
boot camp and the way that you present questions, the kind of like the positive visualization that you use has been like it requires you to examine, okay, why am I actually doing what I'm doing? And that's difficult because oftentimes we don't like those answers because they're
Yeah.
uncomfortable. um and so maybe in a word, the entire thing has been uncomfortable, but in a positive way. Because it's made me address, like, okay, I did this, why did I do that? Like, what are my thoughts, what am I actually thinking behind that? And then how can I modify those thoughts to make a positive change for behavior? And the second word to kind of describe this has been, like brotherhood between all the guys that I've been going through this and you with. um, to see those relationships coming in not knowing any of them, and then to see them grow and deepen, and how we can all be a support and encouragement for each other outside of any formal direction from you, has been really awesome. And I'm hoping that as we continue onward with the end of the boot camp, that we as a group can continue to support each other and build each other up, and kind of keep this group going past the limits of the boot camp.
How do you feel now, that is different than before, maybe?
I have definitely improved in fitness over these last 6 weeks. Um, so in one way, it makes me feel more sore because I'm exercising more often, but it also makes me feel a lot better because I know like that soreness and that tiredness comes from the fact that my body's improving. Um, I also I feel like I'm more aware of myself, more aware of like why I do what I do, and like more conscientious of what I'm doing most of the time. Um, or if I have like a bad day or something, I can stop and think, okay, what happened? What did I think about it, and like what did I actually believe about that whole thing that led to this experience, and how can I respond to that? So I guess I feel better equipped
Hmm.
to deal with the ups and downs of life as time goes on.
Yeah, good. Okay, better equipped. Do you feel like that's going to play into the longevity of following through on things? Because before you said it was difficult to
Mhm.
stick with things for a certain amount of time without external accountability. So now looking forward, maybe not having as much external accountability, do you feel more equipped for that?
I think so, because it's kind of like if my life is a toolbox, the Anchored Bootcamp has put a number of tools into it that I can then pull out when I need them. And maybe one of the biggest tools it put in there is like my realization that I need accountability and that accountability works
Mhm.
for me, so that I can figure out I can then take that knowledge and apply it and find people to hold me accountable in everyday life about various topics and various things. To find a workout buddy who always works out with me, like we go same time, same place, same schedule, and he's relying on me to be there to help motivate me to actually go be there.
Sure. Yeah, okay. That's a great way to put it. Awesome. Do you feel like now that you're done as well, do you feel like you act differently around other people, or are the interactions and relationships with people different at all?
From being mindful and from working out, I feel more confident about myself. So that probably in ways I haven't quite identified does impact the way that I interact with other people.
Sure. Okay. Well, that's good to be a social butterfly. That's awesome that you already are good at that. Okay, now when you think of your life right now and being in the last year of the seminary, that's really exciting. And having
Mm.
gone through this, having approached the change of coming back to school, going through a boot camp, focusing on yourself, what are you most looking forward to now at this point?
Where we've gone in these last 6 weeks, to how God uses all of the things He's taught me and the tools He's given me through the Anchored program to continue to mold me into the tool that fits His spot for me in His church.
Hmm, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, awesome. Okay, just a couple more questions then. What would you say was the most important thing in achieving follow through and the success you had in this boot camp with the other guys and myself?
The most important thing for me was like follow up by you or by the other guys to check in to see, hey Tom, you doing the things you said you would do, basically, because and that's just in my personal experience that helps me. It's not going to help everyone, but that's what was beneficial to me. And then if I didn't meet expectations or if I didn't do the things I wanted to do, that we could sit down and have a call or a chat and work through, okay, so what happened that led you to not do them, like what are the underlying beliefs, and like what's your previous belief, and then where are we going now, how do we change that into something that is no longer sabotaging you but helping you. And I think
Sure.
that was probably the biggest thing that kind of helped the follow through was like the communication and accountability that came with it.
Awesome. Okay, sweet. So now speaking specifically to people who may be on the fence about doing something like this or aren't sure whether they want to do it or not, what would you say to someone who is putting off working on their challenges and the problems that they have in their life?
I would say that there's not going to be a good or great or perfect time to get started. Because when this was starting up, I was moving from Texas to Wisconsin. My entire life was packed up in my car. I came back and I had like a whirlwind week and a half of quote unquote summer before moving from my parents then back to seminary that was in between Texas and Wisconsin. And so it's like, I'm moving, my life is packed up, it's chaotic, and there wasn't going to be a better time, because like if I had waited, there would always be another thing that came up, like another external circumstance that I could point to and say, oh, I can't do it because of A, B, or C. and just do it, I suppose. Take a word out of either from Nike or Shia LaBeouf. Just do it, because there's not going to be the perfect time, and the steps you take don't have to be big. They just have to take you in the right direction. And so, like, start taking steps. And Amos and the other guys you go through this with will be there to help point you in the right direction and take those steps with you. And it's been a huge blessing. Like, I feel like I have a whole new paradigm for how I can respond to like negative behaviors I see in myself, to help me recognize, respond, and then grow and move past them because of this program.
Awesome. Thank you. You
Thank
said
you,
it
Amos.
all. That's you're welcome. Sweet. Well, I look forward to continuing this relationship and facilitating the growth of the group together so that you guys can continue working on things with accountability outside of this program as well. Do hope we can do that. So look forward to that, and God bless your last year.
Thanks, Amos.